Welcome to Chain Opinion Podcast. Today we are diving into President Trump's proposal for a gold card visa program. Seems like it's a pretty fast track to U.S. citizenship if you happen to be rather rich.
Yeah, certainly got people talking, that's for sure.
Definitely. So maybe we could start by explaining, what exactly this gold card is.
Sure. So basically this gold card would replace the current EB-5 visa program, which, has been around since 1990. And a lot of foreign investors have used it to get U.S. residency. The EB-5, though, requires a smaller investment, like around $1 million. And it also has this rule about creating jobs.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. So the EB-5 is like $1 million and you have to create some jobs.
Right.
Okay, and this new gold card is, how much was it again?
This one, they're proposing $5 million.
$5 million. Wow, that's quite a jump. So, I guess that kind of leads to the question of why? Why replace a program that, seems to be working? And what's so special about this gold card? What does it even offer?
Well, the administration, they've said they're worried about fraud with the EB-5. And they think this new gold card with the much higher price tag will attract a different kind of investor, people with a lot of money who will, really pump money into the U.S. economy.
So they're basically saying that richer people will spend more, and that will be better for the U.S.
That's the general idea. They're hoping for more investment across different sectors, more taxes paid, that sort of thing. They really think it could boost the economy as a whole.
Okay. So a lot of faith in the spending power of, the ultra-rich, I guess you could say. But, does that really trickle down to the average person? And are there any downsides to, putting so much economic power in the hands of, a very select group of people?
Yeah, those are the big questions, right? And that's where a lot of the concerns come in. Some people are worried that it'll just make the gap between the rich and everyone else even bigger.
Right. Because if the goal is to, help everyone, wouldn't it make more sense to have a program that encourages a wider range of people to invest?
That's one way to look at it, for sure.
And are there any other concerns besides just the, the economic side of things?
Oh, yeah, definitely. There are concerns about national security, for example. With such a high price tag, you have to be really careful about who you're letting in.
Yeah, someone could just try to buy their way in for the wrong reasons.
Exactly. And then there's the whole ethical question, too. Is it really right to basically sell U.S. citizenship? Should it be something you can just buy? It raises all sorts of questions about fairness and what it even means to be an American.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's definitely complicated. You've got the potential for economic growth on the one hand, but then there's these really big questions about fairness, accessibility, security.
Right, exactly. It's a tough balance.
Yeah.
And to really understand what this gold card program could mean, I think it's helpful to look at what other countries are doing.
Yeah, that makes sense. Are other countries doing something similar? And if so, how does this program stack up against theirs?
Well, the U.S. isn't the only country with investor visa programs. Places like the UK, Canada, New Zealand, they all have their own versions. But what's interesting is that this proposed $5 million price tag for the U.S. gold card would make it one of the most expensive in the world.
Wow, really? $5 million's the most expensive?
Be up there, yeah.
Huh. So does that mean the U.S. could actually end up pricing itself out of the market? Would someone who's looking to invest maybe just go somewhere else where it's cheaper?
It's definitely possible. And that raises another big question. What could this shift in U.S. immigration policy mean in the long run? This isn't just about attracting rich people right now. It's about shaping the future of the country.
Yeah, it's way bigger than just the economics of it all.
Exactly.
So let's break this down a bit more. Let's look closer at some of the specific benefits and drawbacks of this whole gold card idea. What do you think?
Sounds good to me. Let's dive in. All right, so let's start with some of the potential benefits that the Trump administration is highlighting with this program. They're saying this could be like a game changer for the U.S. economy. Attracting these super wealthy people will lead to all sorts of, new jobs and just a big boost to different parts of the economy.
Right. They're definitely painting a rosy picture.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, have there been real world examples of this kind of thing working? In other countries, have similar programs actually had that kind of impact? Mm-hmm. And will those supposed benefits really reach everyday Americans?
Well, yeah, there are actually some examples of these investor visa programs helping to boost the economies in other countries. But it's not always a simple cause and effect. Often the impact is pretty localized, like maybe some industries benefit more than others, or maybe it mostly impacts, certain regions of a country. So, the big question is, even if it does bring in more money, would those benefits be spread out across the U.S., or would would it mostly just help the people who are already doing pretty well?
So basically, even if it does, bring in some investment and create some jobs, there's no guarantee that it'll actually improve things for, the average person.
Right. Exactly.
And some people are saying that could even make things worse, right? Like focusing only on the super rich could actually make the inequality problem even bigger.
That's definitely a worry for a lot of people. If the money just ends up concentrated at the top, then you could end up with even more wealth and power in the hands of just a few, which could lead to more social and economic problems.
Right. It's like it could backfire even if the overall economy grows.
Exactly.
Because if the benefits are just going to a small group, then, what's the point?
And that brings up the question of, are there better ways to stimulate the economy? I mean, wouldn't it be more effective to encourage, a wider range of people to invest?
Yeah, that's a good point. And maybe we can shift gears a little bit here. We've been talking a lot about the economic side of things, but, what about the social and ethical implications of all this?
Yeah, that's a whole other can of worms.
Right. I mean, this idea of like selling U.S. citizenship, it rubs a lot of people the wrong way, right?
It does.
I mean, it makes you wonder, what does it even mean to be an American? Is it just something you can buy? It really raises some questions about fairness and equal opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it gets to the core of some pretty deep values about, fairness and opportunity. And it's important to think about whether a program like this is actually in line with those values, or if it undermines them.
Yeah, yeah. And then there's the whole practical side of things too. We've talked about the security concerns and the possibility of, people abusing the system. How can we be sure that this program won't become like a backdoor for people who aren't coming here for the right reasons?
Well, that's where really thorough vetting becomes absolutely essential. The stakes are high. And if we don't have the right security measures in place, the consequences could be pretty serious.
Right. Because, economic growth is important, but it shouldn't come at the cost of, our safety or our values.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance. And I think looking at how other countries have tackled similar programs can give us some valuable insights.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier that other countries have these kinds of programs. So what can we learn from them? Like what's worked well, what hasn't, and what mistakes can we avoid?
That's a great question. I mean, I think it's really useful to compare and contrast, see what they've done and what we can apply to the U.S. situation.
So let's start with those investment thresholds. I know you mentioned that, the U.S. Gold Card would be a lot pricier than most other programs. So what kind of impact does that have?
Well, it definitely makes it harder for a wider range of people to participate. Countries like Canada or the UK, they have lower investment requirements. So that, opens it up to more potential investors.
So the high price tag could actually make the U.S. less competitive in the global market.
It's definitely a possibility. I mean, if someone can get similar benefits somewhere else for less money, they might just choose to go there instead. And, that wouldn't be good for the U.S. economy.
Right. It seems like the U.S. is going for a more exclusive approach here, focusing on attracting fewer people, but making sure they're all super wealthy.
Yeah, you could say that. It's a strategic choice for sure. And it has its pros and cons. But the big question is, is this the right strategy for the long term?
It's tough to say. It's a really complex issue with a lot of different factors to consider. And the potential impact is huge. It's not just about the economy. It's about social dynamics, national security, and even, our fundamental understanding of what it means to be American.
Absolutely. And I think it's crucial to approach this whole thing with nuance and an open mind. We need to be willing to consider all sides of the issue. There's a lot at stake here.
So it sounds like there are a lot of potential pitfalls here. I mean, it's not just about attracting investment. It's about, what kind of impact this could have on our society as a whole.
Absolutely. We need to think long term, not just focus on the immediate economic impact.
We've talked about the possibility of widening the gap between rich and poor, the security risks, the ethical dilemmas. But are there other potential downsides that, that we haven't touched on yet?
One thing that often comes up with programs like this is the risk of real estate bubbles. If you suddenly have a lot of very wealthy people coming in and investing in property, it can drive prices way up. And then, the people who already live there can't afford to stay.
Oh, right. Yeah. We've seen that happen in other places, where foreign investors come in and housing costs just skyrocket. And it ends up pushing out the people who've been living there for years.
Exactly. And it's not just the economic impact either. It can also lead to social and cultural changes. When you have a really rapid influx of wealthy people, it can create tension and really change the character of a community.
So it's like we're trying to walk this tightrope between, attracting investment and making sure we don't end up damaging the communities we're trying to help.
Yeah, it's a delicate balance, and it requires a lot of careful planning and foresight. It's not enough to just, to open the doors and hope for the best. You need policies in place that will address these potential problems and make sure that everyone benefits.
It's like opening this really complicated puzzle box. There are all these different layers, and every piece you move could have these ripple effects.
Well, yeah, I like that analogy. It really emphasizes the need for careful thought, strategic planning, and a willingness to adapt as we go, because we're going to learn things as we go.
Right. And we need to make sure we're having an honest conversation with the American people about all of this. This is a big decision, and it shouldn't be made without really thinking through all the angles.
I couldn't agree more. The future of our country depends on us making smart decisions that reflect our values and what we want for ourselves and for future generations.
So as we wrap up this discussion, is there a key takeaway that you'd want our listeners to really keep in mind?
Well, I think the main thing is to remember that this program, this Gold Card idea, it's not a magic solution. It's complicated. It has the potential to be good, but it also has the potential to cause some real problems. So we need to be critical. We need to be open to learning, and we need to be committed to finding solutions that work for everyone.
Well said. I think that's a great note to end on. And, this conversation needs to continue. So to our listeners, please stay informed, keep thinking about these issues, and make your voices heard. And thank you for joining us today on Chained Opinion Podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel and leave a comment below with your thoughts. You can also find us as an audio podcast on YouTube Music and Spotify. Thanks for listening.